My name's Julie. I work for a charity called Children North East. The name's a little bit out of date now, really, because we don't just work in the North East and we don't just work with children anymore. We work with all different sectors of society and all over the UK as well. And I'll talk a little bit about the work that we do. So, as I said, I'm a Poverty Proofing Health Co-ordinator, and I just wanted to very briefly explain what poverty proofing is, because unless you knew, you would have no idea. Sometimes we ask people what they think it is, and they say, there was one lady who once said, is it a bit like waterproofing? And instead of keeping water out, you kind of try and keep poverty out. And it kind of is a little bit like that. That's quite a good picture of what we try to do. So what poverty proofing is and what it seeks to do is really to identify barriers and difficulties that people experiencing financial disadvantage face when they try to access key services and organisations. So what we do is we really focus on listening to the voices of patients, of voices of participants, and hearing what it is that they find difficult about accessing any service. So whether that's in the area of health, which we work with a lot, schools we work into, and we also work in culture as well. And we are really wanting to hear that voice of people, to listen to their lived experience and to really support people to be able to access services that they need to access, especially in the area of health, which I work. And like I said, we do that by talking to people and they identify those barriers. And then what we do is we collate all of the information together and we support services to make changes to enable their services to be more accessible for anyone who needs to use them, and just to make life better for people. That's what we aim to do, and reduce those health inequalities as well as part of the progress of it. So this is just a really quick snapshot of the sort of work that we've done so far in different areas of the health service, because as I said, we work primarily in health because I'm part of the health team. It's not exhaustive. We've done work in a lot of other areas as well, but this is the sort of work that we do, and we worked all over the country as well. Like I said, we've done a lot of work in Wales, in the southwest, in the northeast, northwest. I'm currently in Wigan doing some work with type 2 diabetes, so we do get all over. So when we do work with services, we really encourage services to get to know their patients, to get to know the people that they're supporting. And something that does come up a lot is that having any kind of long-term health condition is very difficult, but also very expensive for individuals and for families to manage. We recommend that services chat to people about their experiences, get to know their patients, understand what things are making life more difficult for them. And by knowing someone's situation, their experiences, their social situation, they'll understand more about the person and be able to support them better. We know that there has been a cost of living crisis in kind of 2022, and things haven't gotten better since that time. Everything's just expensive now. It's not a crisis anymore. It's just everything's expensive. And we were asked, and we are often asked by different people that we work with, different services that we work with, how they can better support people who are experiencing difficulties, and how to really support them with the things that are worrying them and bothering them. We know obviously that the NHS can do a great job and can do a lot to support people, but 80 to 85% of the issues that people have are to do with things outside of their health, and they have more influence on someone's health than the NHS has. So helping people with the things that matter to them are really important. So when we work with services, like I said, we encourage them to ask these kinds of questions, but often services get a bit worried and they say, but we don't know how to help people. What can we do to support people if they tell us that there's something that they need a bit of support with? So which is why we put this this session together basically to really help and support people who are experiencing or need that extra support, but to help services too, to know how to support their patients and families in the best way they can. So what we did, like I said, is put together, it's a range of organisations that them nationally. We always do recommend people do look locally as well, but we want it to be as broad as possible and to help people as much as possible. So we wanted to use national services. Now I'm going to just chat through some of the areas that we found, some of the places that are really useful to know a little bit more about. And a lot of people don't know that these organisations, well, these services exist, and this support exists for people. So the NHS, we'll start in the area of the NHS. The NHS has something called the Low Income Scheme now, and that enables people to get support with things such as prescriptions, travel, wigs, fabric, eye care costs, those sorts of things. And it's generally, the criteria is generally the same as that for means tested benefits, but the assessment also takes into account housing costs and council tax as well. So it means that more people should be able to access that support than necessarily have access to means tested benefits. So it's really worth having a look at this scheme and just seeing whether you perhaps can qualify for that extra support, because it does enable people to have, like I said, support with travel costs to get to appointments, support with prescriptions, which can be quite expensive for people. And so it's a really good scheme to be involved with. There are two ways to apply. That's online or by post. And you just need to complete the form and sort of send it off or do it online, and then you'll be given the information. You'll be given the kind of information whether you qualify or not. Something that we talk about a lot in the work that we do with health services is the NHS Healthcare Travel Cost Scheme. Now, people who are on a lower income can access this scheme if they have been referred to secondary care. So it's not available if it's primary care, so going to a GP or something like that. But if it's a secondary care appointment, so going to the hospital or a different clinic, then you should be able to access a scheme if you are receiving any of the benefits that are listed on the screen. It's not just for the person themselves, it also is for their family as well. So what it is generally is a reimbursement scheme. So normally people pay upfront. And so say you had a hospital appointment and you decide to go on the bus, you get the bus ticket, you keep your ticket, and then you can claim that a refund at the hospital. So you'd go to maybe the cashier's office and with proof of your appointment, and also your travel receipts, and also proof of any benefits that you claim, obviously to qualify for it. Something that's not very well known about the scheme though, it's generally they say you should take the cheapest mode of transport, but you can also get support for parking charges as well. So if you have to pay for parking at a hospital, then you can get support with that. And also if a specialist, if one of the pediatricians deems that it's necessary to get a taxi, then you can also get support with that through the scheme. So it will also pay for taxis too. But again, it's something that you need to apply for, and you have to kind of ask the hospital and staff about that as well. Everyone has seen their bills go up in the past couple of years, and everything just seems to continue to get more expensive. Local authorities do offer quite a bit of support for people who are needing that extra little bit of support. There's something called the Household Support Fund. It's delivered by local authorities, but it's actually, the money comes from central government, so that's funded by the government. And it has been extended for the 7th time until the end of March 2026. It really depends on where you live as to how the local authority in that area decides to kind of distribute that money. So it's really important to look on local authority websites, but the support is usually for people who are, really having a tough time paying for essential things like housing, food, bills, those kinds of things. And it is available. Like I said, if you just have a little look on the local authority websites, then you'll find out what support is available in your area, because like I said, every local authority does it slightly differently and has different criteria what's available. If someone is on a lower income and they are pregnant, and if it's their first child or they are having multiple births, then they are able to claim a one-off payment of £500 to help towards the cost of having a child. And that's via the 𝘩𝘢𝘳𝘬𝘪𝘯𝘨 maternity grant. If that is your situation, then do have a chat to your midwife about that. Hopefully midwives should mention it. We always recommend that midwives tell everyone about any help that's available, whether they qualify or not, just so everyone's aware of what's available, because nobody really knows anyone else's situation unless they ask questions about it, which is what we do recommend. So that's something available, and that's the link for the scheme if anyone wants to have a look at that. Also, there is something, if you have young children, called the Healthy Start Scheme. So if someone is more than 10 weeks pregnant or has a child under 4, you may be entitled to get to the Healthy Start Scheme, which enables you to have sort of cow's milk, fresh fruit and vegetables, frozen fruit and vegetables, and is available in a lot of different supermarkets as well. And what happens is you can apply the little link at the bottom of the screen, and you get a card, and you can use that in supermarkets that you go to, in eligible supermarkets. You also are entitled to vitamins during pregnancy and breastfeeding, and also for vitamins for babies and young children as well. It's a really good scheme to know about. Something I'll just touch on, but Vicky was saying earlier, and I'm aware that there is someone, a benefits advisor, coming on at around 7 o'clock tonight, who will go into the next couple of things that I'm going to talk about in a lot more detail. So I'll just briefly mention them. So disability living allowance is a benefit from the DWP that can help with some of the extra costs that people have when they're looking after a child under the age of 16 who perhaps has a disability or an illness or a health condition. There is sort of eligibility criteria that people have to sort of reach, but it is really worth applying for. But the eligibility criteria is mainly based on the needs of the child, not necessarily the income of the parents. So we do a lot of work with type 1 diabetes with children, and most children with type 1 diabetes, regardless of sort of how much income the parents have, are eligible for DLA. And there are 3 different rates, and it's a bit of a gateway benefit, so enables you to kind of have access to other benefits as well if you do receive disability living allowance for a child. The rate is between £28.70 and £187.45 a week. And as I said, it does depend on the level of need that the child has. So that's what that's based on. Carers allowance is another benefit that parents can be eligible for, but again, it does depend on the needs of the child and the type of care that parents, or if you're caring for another adult who has sort of needs as well, and what their needs are. So it's really important to kind of look into that. But again, it's a really good benefit that is available for people to give them that extra support. So you do have to spend at least 35 hours a week caring for someone who's ill or has a disability, and care for someone who does receive that disability living allowance care component as well. And there are limitations as to how much you can earn if you are working too. So it's another great benefit to have a look into. Something that sometimes people aren't aware of is that if you are entitled to any kind of benefit, especially looking at universal credit, then you may be eligible for a budgeting loan, which is extra money that you can receive on top of your benefits that might help to pay for certain essentials. The thing to note about budgeting loan is it does need to be repaid though. You can borrow up to £100 minimum, so that's the kind of least you can borrow. But it depends if you're a single person or couple. If it's a family, then you can borrow up to £812. And that's to get help with sort of things like if you need some furniture, things need replacing, white goods, that sort of thing. Or if you move in, perhaps rent in advance, any costs for home improvements or maintenance, traveling expenses, or maternity or funeral expenses too. It can be really difficult if people are on a low income. It can be quite difficult affording, sort of accessible credit that's really reasonable and affordable credit. So a great place to look is credit unions. So they offer credit and they really work for their members. They're not sort of in it to make a lot of profit. They're in it to work for their members, and they often have much better interest rates if anyone needs to borrow money, and they're often much more likely to loan money to people who perhaps have a little bit more difficulty getting credit in other places, especially on the high street. So they're a great source of sort of information and credit, and a great place to kind of save money with as well. There's also an organisation called Fair4You as well, and that's kind of an alternative to those really expensive weekly payments that people pay on the high street if they do have to sort of get some credit for, say, buying a washing machine, furniture, that sort of thing. People can receive support for council tax as well. You are able to apply to your local council for a reduction, and there's always eligibility criteria. And if you are eligible, you can get a discount, or you will definitely get a discount if you're eligible. And it can be as much as kind of. So, people who are able to apply if they own their own home as well, or if they rent, or they're unemployed, or working as well. But it does depend on each individual council, because each council runs the scheme differently. It also depends on, people's circumstances as well, and household income, so it needs to be looked into, and that information is often available via the DWTP or council tax websites too. So many people have struggled with gas and electricity bills in the past couple of years, and something that isn't very well known is that there's a fund called the British Gas Energy Trust, and they basically support people who have issues with paying for gas and electricity. So they might have missed payments perhaps, and they might have some debt on their gas and electricity. So this fund is open to people with a pay by direct. It's open to people who pay by direct debit too. And it's called the British Gas Energy Trust, but it is open to non-British gas customers as well. But you do have to have a significant sort of debt on the account for some of them. But if your provider is sort of OVO, Boost, E.ON Next, EDF, Scottish Power, Octopus, Shell Energy, all the ones that are listed, then they actually have their own source of kind of fund to support people who are experiencing difficulty paying for their bills. So in terms of the British Gas Energy Trust format, customers need to owe between £50 and £1,700 in energy debt. That's if someone has a repayment meter. But if they're a credit customer, then they need to owe between £250 and £2,000 in energy debt. As you see, there are criteria there, but it's really worth knowing about. And one of the good things is that, like I said, it can support people on a debt up to £2,000, and prices have been really expensive, and it's especially worrying over the winter, I think, for people. But this grant you don't have to repay it, and it does wipe off that debt. So it's something really valuable to know about. People do have to have received help from a money advice agency as well, just to and support. Now, the area of food is also one that we get asked about quite a lot. Food has gone up so much as well in the last 2 years, and continues to go up and be more expensive. But something that a lot of people don't know about is something called community groceries or local pantry schemes. Now, they're often especially in major cities, but there are often lots of small community groups who run them, and there are a lot of schools who run them as well. So normally what happens is, excuse me, people pay a small weekly amount or an annual membership, and then you're able to sort of shop in the store multiple times a week for a really low cost. And the good thing about a community grocery or a local pantry is that it's really set up like a supermarket. There is fresh fruit and vegetables that are there as well. And they have the fridges and everything. And it's just really affordable food for people in the community. As I said, there are local schools run them, and they're often open to the community as well. Religious organisations can run them, local community groups run them too. If you just have a little Google on what community pantries or local pantries or grocery schemes are available in your area, then you should find that there are quite a few. But they're a great place to go and shop, and are really often quite well used as well. For people who are sort of really kind of needing that extra support around food, we're all aware of food banks, and the Trussell Trust is the sort of biggest organisation running food banks in the UK. And we all know from time to time things can be really difficult for people to afford food. So food banks are a great place to go. People do need a voucher to be able to access the parcel, especially if it's from the Trussell Trust network. But there's a huge network of food banks and local organisations and charities who run their own smaller food banks too. The Trussell Trust at the end of sort of 2024, they distributed over 1,699 from 1,699 locations, and millions of food parcels to people who needed that extra support. And again, in the area of food, there are 2 particular food apps which we do direct people to as well. And it's all around sort of reducing food waste and connecting people with that surplus food. There's an app called Too Good To Go, and it allows people to buy surplus food from restaurants and cafes at a really cheap price as well. Sometimes on Facebook, I get served some of the bags that people have kind of gone and bought, and places like Greggs and loads of different places do take part in the Too Good To Go app. So it's great because it gets rid of food that would otherwise go to waste, which is obviously something that's really helpful to do. And it means that it doesn't get thrown away, and loads of people participate in it. Loads of people use the apps as well. 𝘯𝘬𝘳𝘥 is another app that again enables people to share surplus food with their neighbours. It's a bit more local, that one, and people can just go and pick stuff up. So they put something on the app, say, I've got 4 bags of potatoes if anyone wants them, and then you would just respond to that and go and pick them up. So digital technology is huge. Obviously, most people, a lot of people have access to that digital technology. Mobile phones are everywhere. And it is assumed that everyone has one, but the reality is that that's not the case. There are so many people who do not have access to digital devices, and the NHS especially is becoming more digitized, and just generally life is more digital now. And so it really does make it much more difficult for people, for families, for individuals who aren't able to sort of access digital technology to be able to have a repeat prescription. They might have to go online to get it. If someone's pregnant, they might have to use an app such as Badger Notes to which has all of their medical sort of records on, their maternity notes on. And it can be very difficult for people if they don't have those things. Now, there's a charity called the 𝘗𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬 Foundation that is really wanting to support people to get people technology. So they have 3 different ways of doing that. One is through something called their device bank. So basically businesses donate any unused technology, which they wipe, and then they can give it to people who need it really. So it's things like mobile phones, tablets and laptops. Those are the sort of things that are able to be sort of gotten for free from the charity. It does mean sort of a professional would have to kind of build that relationship with the 𝘗𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬 Foundation. So they would kind of have to apply for a person. People aren't able to sort of go directly to them. But like I said, if it's sort of, if people think, oh yeah, I think they really could do with that, then a professional can support someone with that. And I know there's quite a few maternity services that we work with who use the 𝘗𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬 Foundation, and quite a lot of type 1 diabetes services as well, that really support people to get those mobile phones that they need. A lot of people are given data bundles through their data bank. So that's kind of 6 months worth of a 6 months long SIM card. And then when that runs out, people are able to get another one. So these are given out free, and they're donated by various mobile phone networks. They also offer training for people to really build their confidence and skills in terms of sort of the digital world, using the internet and lots of different technologies as well. And they do this by partnering with local organisations to sort of do that training as well. Something that not a lot of people are aware of is social tariffs for broadband. So if someone is accessing one of the sort of benefits such as universal credit, pension credits, employment and support allowance, job seekers allowance or income support, then you may be entitled to access a social tariff for broadband. And what that is basically cheaper broadband. So the prices range between £10 and £23. So it's quite a bit cheaper than sort of regular broadband. And it's not any slower. It's fast. It's unlimited for some in some areas. So it's enough to sort of stream films, to shop online, that sort of thing. Often it has a really low setup fee, if there's a fee at all. If it's your current provider, say for instance you're on a different tariff for your broadband, if you look at the social tariff and you do qualify, then you'll just be able to swap for no charge. So it just means that people are paying less for the same service in order to sort of support people who might find it a bit more difficult to access that broadband that they need, because a lot of people just need broadband now. If you've got young children, then and you're watching things online or accessing support for schoolwork, it's kind of seen as quite important now to have that. Water companies also have a social tariff scheme that helps to reduce water bills for customers, especially those who are on a low income. It does depend on the water company as to what they offer, but all water companies do offer some kind of social tariff to support people who are on a lower income. As something to really look into. It's different to the 𝘗𝘰𝘵𝘦𝘢𝘴𝘬 scheme, which is support for people who potentially have sort of any kind of disabilities and need some medical care, need that extra support. So, but again, there are criteria around it, and people do have to kind of look at their own water companies to find out what they are. But often it can include things like flexible payment plans and payment breaks. So if someone is kind of having a bit of short-term difficulty, they might be able to have a break for a couple of months and not pay their water bill, and then start repaying later. I think rent or housing costs takes up the most of most people's budgets, and we've seen that rents have skyrocketed. If you're fortunate enough to sort of own your own house and you're paying a mortgage, interest rates have increased, so mortgages are more expensive. But there is some support for people who are sort of having a bit of difficulty with those costs. So if someone's on universal credit, they might be able to get support for housing costs. If you're on a low income, obviously it does depend on your circumstances. If someone has savings and they live in the UK. And if it doesn't, if housing benefit doesn't cover the whole of the cost, people are able to apply for that for a direct discretionary housing payment as well. But that's a one-off payment that, again, that's distributed by the local councils, and it's based on people's circumstances, so you can go to the council for a form. If someone is paying a mortgage, there is some support for mortgage and help for people who are potentially having issues with their mortgage. So in the last couple of years, there's 48 mortgage lenders have agreed to support customers as part of a mortgage charter that the government set up. And it enables people, what it enables people to do is to switch to interest-only payments for 6 months. So that means you don't have to pay, you pay a lot less. So you're just basically paying the interest on the mortgage instead of the sort of the payment. And or you could extend your term by around 6 months to just make the payments a little bit cheaper, to reduce them a little bit, and you can revert back within 6 months if you contact your lender as well. There are also other sort of perks with this mortgage charter as well. It enables you to look for a fixed, if you come into the end of your fixed rate deal, then there is a chance to sort of go and look for a better deal earlier. So I think it's sort of 6 months prior. And a key sort of move within it is that no borrower is forced to leave their home without their consent unless it's exceptional circumstances, in sort of if it's kind of less than 12 months from their first missed payment. So so lenders are really trying to support people in the best way that they can to stay in their homes and to sort of manage to sort of keep them. The government also has some support for people who are paying a mortgage as well. So if you're having difficulty, someone was ill or lost their job, and you did have to sort of claim benefits, then you can get support for mortgage interest, and that is a loan. So basically, you borrow money from the DWP. You do have to pay it back. You do have to have access to the benefits listed on the screen, but it might be a cheaper way of borrowing money than perhaps getting a different kind of loan, depending on what support's available to you. So it's just something that's really good to know about. There are some charities who really want to support people who are sort of lonely, who are sort of experiencing a bit of financial difficulty, and they're not able to buy that technology. So Wavelength is a charity that provides free televisions, radios, tablet computers for people who are isolated and perhaps can't afford to buy the technology. You can just apply to them yourself. You don't have to have a professional apply for you or anything. You can just contact them. And obviously they would have a chat with you about why you would sort of want it. But it's generally the kind of people who are able to sort of access Wavelength are people who have perhaps experienced some kind of loss, have an illness or injury, some kind of disability, if they've been homeless or experienced domestic abuse, become a refugee, or perhaps moved away from family and friends. As I said, you can apply as an individual, or organisations can also apply as a group. So it is a great charity to know about. The Reuse Network is a network that's it's kind of nationwide, and it's dedicated to recycling and reusing goods. And they recondition electrical goods but also furniture as well. And it's available at low cost. So they have centres all over the UK. If you just put Reuse Network in, you'll find that there's centres all over the UK. And as I said, they do sell the goods, but it is at a reduced cost. So it just makes it a lot more affordable. They have IT equipment, household items, furniture, and it is high quality stock that they give out and that they sell. Something that can really support people is kind of having a grant. And another way to really ensure that you are sort of getting everything that you're entitled to is to have a look at there are different benefits calculators. I was reading the other day that there's £23 billion in unclaimed benefits that obviously is just not given out. So a great way to sort of maximize the income, or for someone to maximize their income, is to check that they're getting everything that they're entitled to. Claiming benefits can be complicated. Not everyone knows what they are entitled to, but there are some great online tools to help people. So there's entitled to the benefits calculator. Turn to Us. I've looked at that before, and it's really easy to use. You do have to put some information in, obviously, a little bit about your circumstances, but it is really straightforward. There's also Policy and Practice. They have a Better Off calculator as well, and there's Lightning Reach as well, and they all give information about any grants that are available, and also about any benefits that people may be entitled to. If you're not sort of using a mobile device, or you don't have access to one, often libraries do have a copy of sort of the directory of grant making trusts, and that'll have a lot of information in as well about charities and other grants, and the criteria needed to apply for those. I'm sure everyone's very aware of Citizens Advice as a charity. They offer loads of help, loads of practical advice on lots of different issues, benefits, work, debt, housing, law, lots of different areas. There have kind of been a reduction in the number of sort of offices that they have around the UK. A lot of their sort of customer-facing centres have closed, but they are available online as well. So they have a phone service and a live chat service as well, which obviously if you're using Wi-Fi, then that would be free, which is great. But their web chat service runs Monday to Friday, 8 till 7, and their phone lines are listed on the screen as well. So they're a great organisation who can offer a lot of help and support to people. And so I would definitely be sort of recommending going to them. The local authority, all local authorities should also have like a welfare rights department as well, though, which does broadly similar things, especially around benefits advice, as citizen advice do too. So it's just to be aware that welfare rights departments do exist generally in local authorities that can offer help and support as well. So you may have heard of a charity called the Family Fund. So they support parents who are raising a child that perhaps is really ill or has some kind of disability or needs a lot of extra care, especially if they're on a low income, and they give out a range of ways to support people. So they have a grant scheme to support parents who are on a low income, and that they can help people to give them money for technology, holidays, furniture, lots of different things like that. And they also have a scheme to support parents who have children who have mobility issues as well. So the sort of mobility scheme doesn't kick in until children reach 3, because it's kind of accepted widely that children can have, they may all kind of walk at different rates, and so when that sort of national mobility scheme kicks in, then they can access perhaps a car if a child is needing a car. But Family Fund do provide a stopgap, so because the mobility fund doesn't kick in until 3 years old, they'll give help and support in getting transport for people, for children who are under 3, if that's kind of deemed to be necessary. So that's a good part of the charity to know about as well. I'm sure we've all heard of Greggs, but Greggs do a lot of work to support families who are experiencing difficulty. They find themselves in sort of difficult financial circumstances. They have a lot of small grants that they give out. These often have to be applied for by a professional, but they're a way to really kind of help people to deal with those costs. So say washing machine breaks down, then it is possible to apply for a grant from Greggs. And they provide things like supermarket vouchers, clothing vouchers, bedding, that kind of thing. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a tickle today. Family Action do offer grants as well, and that's for lots of different practical and emotional support for people. So there's someone who you might want to kind of apply to as well. And they also have a family advice line as well, that you can call if you do just want some extra support around parenting, relationship, and kind of, support with relationships, family relationships, siblings, conflict, all of those kind of things, financial worries as well. So you can use a text service, or you can call them on the number on the screen, and they're very happy to speak to you.